What is the moment when you realized, my teacher is an idiot? First grade teacher demonstrating how the water temp matters when washing hands. She had 3 bowls: hot, cold, and lukewarm water. The argument was that lukewarm gets rid of more germs than the other 2. She rubbed Vaseline on 3 kids' hands to represent germs. Cold kid goes first. 10-second-ish wash. Hands disgusting afterwards. Hot kid me goes next. 3-second-ish wash. Hands less disgusting, but still gross. Luke goes last. Luxurious multiply 90-minute spa session complete with manicure. Hands look and feel carved by Michelangelo. I called bullshit. Teacher replied along the lines of, okay, yeah, you know better. Never mind which one of us is a grown up. Logic sparked to life in my brain. Santa and the Easter Bunny fell soon after. She thought dolphins were fish. No amount of arguing by 3rd grade me was enough to convince her otherwise. They live in the ocean. They're fish. My algebra teacher had us take 10% off a number to find 90%. Then to undo it, she said take 10% of the 90% and add it back in. That is not how math works. I called her on it, and she told me I was mistaken in front of the whole class. After class she admitted I was right but didn't want to confuse everyone else. Lady, doing simple math wrong is what confused everyone else. In primary school, I asked my teacher what an ounce was. She hushed me, told me it wasn't real and to never ask that again. As though as a 9-year-old I was asking about an ounce of weed, and not the unit of measurement. After a substitute chemistry teacher heated a test tube over a Bunsen burner, while securing it in a test tube holder, he absent-mindedly handed the red-hot test tube to a student standing nearest to his demonstration. The boy, trusting that it must be okay, got his hand badly burned down. Of course, the glass test tube shattered on the floor. 2nd grade teacher had our class naming the hottest things we could think of. A few kids already said the most obvious, like sun and fire, so the 3rd thing I could think of off the top of my head was lava. Turns out lava isn't real. Then the teacher had the whole class laugh at me for it. Made me feel stupid as heck for years, until I learned that lava is real, and my teacher was a dick. Not my teacher, but my daughter's teacher. In science class, they were discussing the scenario of a Skittle dropped into water, pointing out the red cloud coming from the candy. He asked the class what was happening to the coating in that context. Student said, it's dissolving. He argued, no, it's going away. When my grade 2 teacher tried to hold me back a year, only to discover that she thought I was my older sibling 3 years my senior whom she had also taught in the 2nd grade. TBF, she was way too old to still be teaching. She may have been senile. Edit, the teacher's intention to hold me back a year was all the more patently insane because I had good grades for a 7-year-old, whereas my sibling, though not a dullard, didn't. So I come home with an excellent report card along with a letter to my parents that I'm gonna be held back due to poor grades. WTF. Edit 2, my parents sorted it out and I didn't get held back. Also, this was in 1980 and teachers could in fact fail kids like this back then. And did so often. Or at least this one teacher did. I guess it was an accepted practice at that place and time. I had a teacher who told us alligators never attack people because they are vegetarians. My science lecturer said that water in a kettle boils at 60 degrees Celsius. Boils. I was around 5 or 6 years old and drawing pink trees. They were supposed to magnolias. Obviously I was too young to remember the name, but I did know them from the annual blossom viewing my family did each year, and my neighbors had one in their front garden as well. My teacher looked past and said, "There's no such thing as pink trees." I tried to explain that there are. Even my neighbors have one, etc. But she cut me off and told me to stop lying. I'm still kind of mad about that, lol. Had my high school geography teacher insist that Antarctica is a country. I lost points on the test because of it. My biology teacher once told me babies' heads never grow. You're born with the same size head you'll always have. My wife and I were in a birthing prep class. We are both in the medical field, but didn't advertise it to the teacher. She was actively advising parents not to have their babies vaccinated against Hep B as newborns because she thought you get Hep B exclusively from eating contaminated foods, and couldn't see why newborns would need such a thing. It's one thing to be wrong, and it's another to be wrong and advising a room full of first-time parents with your ignorance. 4th grade. She argued with me when I wrote a unicorn on a paper, insisted it was an unicorn because U is a vowel. I knew I was correct and could not find it within me to write say it stupidly wrong. Yes, I was polite about it. She sent me to the principal's office. My mom agreed she was an idiot. English teacher in a non-English speaking country where I was studying abroad insisted that the correct term is in fact a scapegoat. When my English teacher, I'm from Italy, so we have English as a second language, said letter Ch instead of lettuce. She was also one of the worst teachers and ended up getting replaced. I remember the time my 4th grade teacher tried educating us on what makes an animal. One of the criterion she came up with was all animals have brains. I asked, what about jellyfish? They don't have brains. To which she replied, well then they aren't alive, are they? When she wrote amateur code on my first project in C class. No shit, it's amateur, it was my first program, lol. My biology teacher in high school asked me a question regarding something she was talking about, the answer of which was projected onto the whiteboard with an overhead projector. I looked at the whiteboard, and she placed her left hand over the part that had the answer so as to conceal it. I told her that the text was still projected onto her hand, and that I could see it. She was visibly upset, and then she proceeded to place her right hand on top of her left hand. I bursted out with laughter. She kicked me out and called my parents. My English teacher asked when Woodrow Wilson was president. We were reading Scholar Ibis and it mentioned him. So I raised my hand. I replied both his election dates, 1912 and 1916, if I'm not mistaken. She tells me no. I assumed I got the dates wrong, and it was actually 1914 and 1918 or something. Then some girl raises her hand and answers 1900s, and she says yes. I was in grade school, maybe 3rd or 4th grade. The teacher asked what was the capital of the state of California. I said Sacramento. Teacher said I was wrong. It's Los Angeles. Edit to add that the teacher said it was Los Angeles. She told me, a type 1 diabetic, to just know when I need to drink the juice box and to do it before I feel sick. This was before sugar level sensors, and you can't be taking blood from her finger 247. So we mainly go by the feeling. I feel low, sick, get sugar. Oh, how nice my life would actually be if I would just know. My mom went to take a university class in Greek. She's a native speaker, so she was hoping for an easy A and to maybe just read some new literature. The professor was Peggy Hilling it hard and my mom tried to correct, and she told my mom that she was wrong. Then another native speaker confirmed it. She never called on either of them in class again, lol. I had a teacher who gave a lecture he had already given, word for word. He asked a question which I answered correctly. He asked how I got the answer, and I said I wrote it down the last time you gave this lecture. She kept saying that 12 times 3 was 48 and corrected a student when they said it was 4 and not 3. In 7th grade, a teacher gave our class an assignment that included our birthplace, but she wrote on the board, "Where were you born?" I had a teacher argue with me that sate isn't a word. I had to pull out a dictionary to prove them wrong. Later on I had to do the same thing with die, being the singular of dice. When she started showing medieval Europe's trade routes on a South America map. Not a teacher, but I used to go to a live-in group because of a genetic nerve disease, and one of the group leaders is the idiot. I had my laptop broken, so I had to use the old school giant PCS there, and I got notified that Flash Player needed an update. I went to the office and asked the so-called tech guy group leader if I could update it, and he said no, that's just a virus trying to infect the PCS. It's been saying that for years. This was in a time Flash Player was regularly updated and used a lot. I was in the Earth Science program at U of Maine or Ono at the same time my mother was attempting to recover from a debilitating stroke that left her practically paralyzed on her left side. While I attended school, I also had to look after my mother's property, take care of her affairs, and try to get rehab care for her out of a very recalcitrant facility, plus, of course, visit her and look out for her in a lonely life in a rehab center nursing home. I always managed to keep my grades up at an A average, actually, and attend classes. Though, when it came time for my Keystone project, I went to see the head of the program, as I was having issues finding a professor to oversee a project. The program head was exceptionally pleased at this, as he explained he thought I didn't deserve help after all. I had been too busy looking after unimportant, off-campus affairs to attend completely optional department socializing events. And all the professors therefore justifiably hated me. I currently work in scientific translation, away from ignorant methodicas like that. Gave me an F for plagiarism. I didn't steal anything, and she refused to show me her proof. Because this was high school and I wrote at a university level, her words, she stated she didn't need to show me the proof when I requested it. My 8th grade social studies teacher thought Panama was a part of Canada. Why? Because in the geography textbook we were using, Panama and Canada were colored in with the same shade of pink. Both our rap English teachers believed they had figured out the origin of the idiom. Lock, stock, and barrel. It meant the whole store, which was the lock on the door, the stock on the shelves, and the barrel of crackers. The kid who sat behind me in homeroom, for show and tell, brought in a couple of Pennsylvania rifles, one a caplock, the other a flintlock, each of them with a lock, stock, and barrel. I had an English teacher in high school who was obsessed with poetry, and one afternoon she got into an argument with half the class over a poem, because she was reading the word written and printed no one as noon, and refused to believe it could possibly be no one, even though that was the only way the line in the poem made remotely any sense. When she said I'm a reincarnated Native American princess, I mean, I thought she wasn't great until then, but at that point I knew she was an idiot. I was started when Hawaii bombed California. My 9th grade English teacher, she said since we were learning about the formation of democracy, that she will let the class vote whether I passed or failed a presentation. My mom bought me shorts that were too big on the waistline. As I didn't wear a belt yet, I would pull my shorts up whenever they felt like they were going to fall off. My 2nd grade teacher thought, this boy must be playing with his dong, and yelled at me for it. She treated me like some pervert for the rest of the year. Turns out she was the pervert later on. The moment he accused me of taking a practice test 237 times exactly and basically said I was dumb for thinking it would help my academics. This was stupid for multiple reasons. 1. I did not take the test 237 times. I took it exactly once, to which I got a perfect score the first time. 2. The test was about 10 minutes long. If I'd taken it 237 times I'd have spent 2370 minutes on it, or 39.5 hours. The test had come out the day before. I physically didn't have enough time to do the test that many times, unless I was speedrunning and guessing at every question. 3. The correct answers to the test were given directly after you take it. If I wanted to redo it for a perfect score, I could have just looked at the correct answers. We were asked to name healthy foods. I said fish. He responded maybe, if you don't eat all the batter. 3 words used for condoms. If you don't get it, please never use 2 condoms at once. They get weaker not stronger due to friction. Student next to me loudly farted, but I got blamed, and she yelled at me and sent me out of the room. high school history teacher. I privately alerted him to the fact he was saying bubonic plague as bubonic plague. I was that annoying kid who always corrected people. I've learned to be more judicious about it since then. He then said he didn't care because bubonic was easier to say. It got worse from there. Our literature teacher notified, after we had already done the quiz and test, that they have a combined grade and that, if we failed just one out of the 15 questions in the quiz we would get 0 points for it. While she was talking, lots of students obviously raised their hands. She let no one talk, at which point she said, verbatim, "You guys know what is one of the things I hate about kids? They never listen to the end and always barge in the middle." We let her finish talking. When she was done, students raised their hands again. Then she said, "I don't want to listen to you." The same literature teacher also told us she was okay with us watching the movie adaptation of the book we have a test for our diploma on instead of reading it. At the end of the day, I feel sorry for her because she just wakes up every day to a job she hates. But she is still an idiot. In 5th grade, my teacher docked points from my science homework for defining magma as lava before it reaches the surface. I hated her after that, even though I was technically wrong. She later told us that sea turtles lay 8 million eggs a year, pronounced hyperbole one of our vocab words for the unit as hyperbole, and said that the difference between a cow and a bull is that bulls have horns. German teacher marked my family and pets essay ad because I had misspelt a word repeatedly. No miss. That's the German word for ferrets. Bumped up to an A. She just assumed I had messed up instead of the possibility that I owned a pet other than hund and cats. I had an economics professor in my 2nd year of college selling MLM products before after class. At first I thought it was going to be like a long con lesson or something. But no. Worse. A student got him into their sales stream. I realized then that choosing a party school wasn't the best decision 18-year-old me made. Not so much my teacher is an idiot, more my teacher is so out of touch. In philosophy class we were discussing the idea of being in the zone and the teacher talked about it in the context of sports and work. She then asked us for examples of activities that we would get in the zone for. A lot of people use the example of various video games they played and times they were in the zone. The teacher was really skeptical that it was possible and dismissed the first few examples as people not understanding the concept, but as more and more people added their own gaming in the zone examples, she was eventually forced to concede that it might be possible. She was old. When I was being bullied almost every day and cried to her for help, she shrugged it off and ignored me. So I settled it myself with violence by punching the bully square in the eye. He left me alone ever since. Violence is never the answer, they said. Go to a teacher, they said. Ha. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe.